So I had every intention of doing a realistic 2003 because the realistic 2003 is another of those one-hander sets, and the crystal filtered as factory standard, but the trouble is the transmitted audio is awful, and we've got a modification. I don't like modifications, but in this case I did have to concoct one right back in the day. So I'm going to show an original handset, and we'll modify a handset, and then we can compare with an on-the-air test. I think I've had the parts through today for that Midland 76900 I've been harping on about for weeks. Hopefully sort the power supply out in that. I did the radio, it'll all be on the video, or are we doing it in several parts? Now 18 months ago I did a video on the Radio and Electronics Constructor, the data sheets which were on the back page, and there's a screenshot from my video of the time, and I was told this is data sheet number 57, obviously talking about foreign language broadcasts, and that is in the back catalogue from 18 months ago. So I scanned every one of them and built it up into a binder. Is this before the data sheets? No, there's data sheet number 96. So, Radio and Electronics Constructor. So I was talking about Practical Wireless a week ago, and the first copy I ever bought was May 1974, and I said I'd found these magazines as a 11-year-old in the foundations being dug for some new build houses in my hometown of Rotherham. And somebody did put the comment, my secondary school was Oakwood on Moorgate Road, and I was at school with James May. I lent him a magazine in 1974, and he's not giving it back yet. So one of the other magazines was Radio and Electronics Constructor, and it never seemed as polished a publication, but the contents is excellent. And I wanted to go back to the beginning of Radio and Electronics Constructor. I've told about the end before it became Circuit's publication, Radio and Electronics World, and then it folded after about 3 years. So Circuit was Ambit International's new name. They became Broxbourne. Don't know whether they're still in existence. So that was a typical Radio and Electronics Constructor magazine from the mid-70s. And the other thing I didn't mention in the video is the latest magazine I got in that batch was January 1974. And as I said to my mother, this is very interesting, I wonder if it's still published. And of course Practical Wireless is still published, and that May 1974 issue I showed last time was the first magazine I bought with my pocket money. But some of the other magazines were Radio and Electronics Constructor, and there was a similar kind of era, 1971 through to 1973. And you know what, my mother made me throw away all the ones which were not in the 70s because they would be out of date. And oh dear, this is what makes you want to collect 10 of each issue in case this happens to you again. I mean, I built things and need to make parts sometimes, like radio frequency chokes, which aren't available today, and I've looked how to make those parts in 1930s magazines, and I've then successfully made those parts. So that would have been typical. This is what this video is about. This is, oh, there's the ZM414. This was typical of the 1970s. So I want to go right back, and I've printed off from that favourite download site, volume, well, that's number 10. There's number 1. Volume 1, number 1, and it's August 1947. So these people had also been publishing the Radio Amateur and Shortwave News. So I've got some copies of Shortwave News. It's similar small format. I mean, the way I've printed these A4 is a vast improvement for my ability to read them. Oh, Lincolnshire Hamfest still going. Ticket price for entry is more money than I've got, so I can't go, or I'd have nothing to spend there. You know, don't realise that some people are on kind of lower budgets than others. So Shortwave News. They also did the Radio Amateur. I haven't got one here. Similar format magazine. So I could see what they were trying to do here. And what they were trying to do was to bring out another magazine. There's 1946. 1946, so just before this. I could see them bringing out another magazine because of the after the war, of course, there was rationing, so paper was rationed and magazines could only be so many pages long. So by bringing out a new magazine, it gave them another paper supply. So that's what it was about, because they'd got no room to put constructional projects in this magazine when it was harping on mainly about all these tables and things which I'm not interested in as a radio amateur, but some people are. I really don't care. So my idea of DX is 65 miles FM, 4 meters. So these are some original magazines from my collection of this kind of early 75, which started to have photos on the front cover, and they like to do blueprints. And one thing they did in this magazine is they only gave you the circuit diagram. Sometimes they might give you a rough layout. They did not go with point-to-point wiring, and they were dead against it. But then, by 1956, they started to be putting projects in with point-to-point wiring. They said, well, you're just following instructions, it's painting by numbers. You should be learning how these things are wired. So you get an article like this, the superette for the beginner, and they're showing where the coils are, but they're not actually showing any point-to-point wiring and leaving it for your ability to build that up into that. You know, not everybody can do that, especially early on. So these early ones are going to be a circuit diagram and a components list, and that's all you're going to get, mate. So, Volume 1, Number 1. Premier Radio. Oh, let's zoom out. We can't see diddly squat on this. Just move the camera up. I've got shorts on. Don't have so many legs, do I? You need to put off your dinner. Radio, 56 College Road, Harrow. It all seems very London-centric, doesn't it? And somebody who doesn't go south of Watford. So we've got an editorial here, and it's saying, "It's with great pleasure that we present the first number of our new journal, The Radio Constructor. We were the first to produce a post-war amateur radio monthly publication, and our experience with that journal, the shortwave news, has made us realise what a large section of the community is now making radio its hobby. Shortwave listening and the building of shortwave receiving equipment has shown a boom almost as remarkable as the boom of broadcast reception after the First World War. Whilst amateur transmitting is at present enjoying a popularity quite unique in the history, still more interesting is the demand for literature of all types devoted to the hobby of radio, etc., etc." So what they're saying is, tell us what you want and we'll see how we can fit around it. So they're wanting to build projects. So this one, decade resistance box, they are suggesting winding your own resistances, but in actual fact, of course, you'd buy the resistors, wouldn't you? It says you can do, but it would add to the cost. It's like everybody's on an even tighter budget than me. The straight receiver, this is the TRF type receiver, tuned radio frequency. And then they go on to describe a project called the Good Companion receiver, and it's quite flexible insofar as you can do it as a 3-valve, it's a 3-valve TRF, and you can either do it with a valve rectifier or you can do it with a solid state rectifier. But it's one of these live chassis things, and the dropper was the mains lead. No, you need to run this through a transformer. Not building things like that. I did build a 1960 radio from Practical Wireless, and that was live technique, but I built it with a transformer. So again, no layout. There's a picture of their finished one. It was entirely up to you to be clever enough to turn that circuit into that. Building a output meter for 25 shillings, that's £1.25 to younger people. Talking about shortwave superhets. For those who don't know, superhet is super heterodyne, and it discusses all that. Amateur band predictions, not interested, turns the page. An aerial changeover relay, a versatile 150 watt transmitter, and it's be AM modulated. The modulator's there. There's a VFO, or it can be crystal controlled, and yeah, I suppose you could build that for about £500. You know, there's war surplus, and there you go. It's going to be very much under-modulated, isn't it? Because what's the PA knocking out? Without reading that, I can't tell you what the PA's doing. I can't see what those valves are. And they look like something like 807s. So it only looks to me like a 20 watt amplifier. It's going to be 150 watts on Morse, on CW, but it looks very under-modulated if it's going to be for the AM bit. Anyway, and then reviewing the Edison 640 receiver. So you can all go and buy one of those off eBay. And the insides of that, and then there we go. And some small ads. So that's number one. Now number two, printed that off from our favourite website, no cover. Yeah, why is there no cover? I'll tell you why there's no cover. Because a lot of these, the only ones that have survived, because the paper's not very good when it's just after the war, the only ones that have survived are bound ones. And this is volume 2. It's my bound copy of volume 2. I've got some odd volume 1 magazines, but I haven't got a bound one. I haven't got the entire set. So this is what happened, and you ended up with the covers being cut off and just the innards, which is a shame. I have sent some scans to these people, you know, to help with their dilemma, shall we say. Oh, public address amplifier. So that's why these have been scanned with no covers, because they will only have had the bound issues. So in number 2 he's saying how many of these magazines have sold, and so on. We've now started with a commentary, and it said Coventry. What's that wire dangling? Oh, we've got not normally this wide an angle. It's unavoidable. The straight receiver going on again about TRFs. The cathode ray oscilloscope. That looks like a homemade one. Is that what they're going to do? Build one? They are indeed. And there's the circuit diagrams for that oscilloscope. Does it say what tube it uses? You could build that for about £500 as well. A midget signal generator for 465, so it's for doing your IF. Except these days they're 455 only. Predictions, which I'm not interested in. Calibration of signal generators, making a start. Series of articles describing the progress of a newcomer to constructional work. This is part 2 of that 150 watt transmitter, doing the VFO. This is the VFO. And that's all the pages. And then by the time we move on to 10, issue number 10, see what they've got. See, it's been scanned from quite a tatty one. Oh yeah, people used to love cutting things out before photocopiers. See, these formulas and data are still valid today. It looks like they've got a few more pages by now. That looks like the same good companion receiver they did before. But no, it's not. It's got 4 valves. And it's just a superhet. go from page 278. No, this isn't the right way round. Who's bound this? Oh, it was me, was it? Well, if it was actually the right way round, I think it's the all-drive portable superhet, that. Seems like I've got the pages muddled up. I'll have to unbind it and redo it. Queries. An easily built 4-valver for the DXer. The R1155, there's probably people still interested in restoring those, which were the Lancaster bomber receivers. Yeah, it's been, it's not being bound right by me, so we'll redo that. And then just moving really, really forwards, 1960s, totally different thing. Heathkit. We can actually zoom in and lose a lot of the rubbish. Home radio again. So June 1962. What volume are we on by now? Volume 15. Light dependent resistors and circuits. Operating a relay with a light dependent resistor and using an OC72 transistor to do the switching. X-ray spectrometer. There's one at my dear late father's place of work at Swinton Laboratories, British Steel Research Laboratories in Rotherham. A transistor voltage stabilizer. Lots of this stuff, they still do it today. Building a pocket transistor portable resistor. Well, I can't speak this evening. Pocket transistor portable receiver with 4 transistors in it. OC44, OC81D. You try getting an OC81D and a matched pair of OC81s. And see, by this time they're showing you how to wire it up. A folding bench, because obviously you can't splay all your gear out in your house like I do, because nobody's going to let you do that, because although it's your house, they won't let you do that. Yeah, right. Don't even go there. To make space for your radio gear, get rid of the television. I did that 20 odd years ago. Longleat mobile rally. I don't know whether that's still going. In your workshop was a good thing. It was a good technical article, but it was done as if it was a person who'd been in the business a very long time and is an apprentice, Dick. I'm quite certain, commented Dick, that Picasso doesn't have to use a ruler. Smithy being the gaffer, bent over the battered and scarred wooden slab, which he fondly referred to as the workshop drawing board, and abstained from replying. And it'll go into some really technical thing, but it makes it a fun read. And I can see a bit of truth coming into this. Going for a steak at a cafe and his teeth getting broken, and I can just imagine that, and the apprentice really enjoying this steak, and the gaffer having broken his teeth on it. Article on Xenodiodes. A family radiogram. Right. All band AM tuner. So by all band they'll mean long wave, medium and short wave. Producing Radio Luxembourg's fade. Well, my family weren't into pop music, so that would not be something they would have wanted. Constructor visits the 1962 International Audio Festival and Fair. Now we get to the smaller. Oh, BBC's looking for sound technical operators. And you can earn 605 quid a year. Unfortunately, it's London. So there you go, a look at Radio and Electronics Constructor, which started off as radio. Oh, it's still called Radio Constructor there. It was when we moved a bit further and it became Radio and Electronics Constructor. So there we go, from its 1947 beginnings. So I hope you found that a bit nostalgic. Thanks for watching.